the truth about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower. 10-part series. This is going to cover answers to every question you may have and questions that you need to be asking. Part 5 of 10. Do or die. That's what this one is going to be about. When I think about the way a healthy church organization functions, it tends to operate with open arms, but not to the point of love bombing. They preach a reasonable doctrine from a reasonable place and level of investment. They do not leave a do or die taste in your mouth in the end. And they don't tend to have a bait and switch approach either, where it's a lot of love bombing in the beginning, but then the do or die is soon to come, once they have you fully hooked. However, the Watchtower is very different than how I would describe the functioning of a healthy church organization. So I want to take a look at how a very typical progression for a convert may look in the first 1 year, roughly 1 to 2 years of being part of the Watchtower organization. So in the early stages is usually the love bombing. They find you often in a time of need or hardship. Maybe you've just lost a family member, a job, your home. You're going through some type of economic distress or a sickness. And they show you extraordinary love and care, even to the point of, helping you out logistically in tangible ways, financially, whatever it may be. They get involved. They show up. They show you their support. And you think to yourself, wow, these guys, they're the real deal. Like, wow, they really, really care about me. However, in most cases, and I'm not saying all, in most cases, they may care, but that's not their primary objective. They're not getting involved with you and coming to your aid primarily because of how much they care about you. That's not their number one reason for coming to your rescue. Recruitment and them doing their duty as a obedient Jehovah's Witness pioneer in good standing, that is their primary reason and motive for coming to your aid at this time. And they are using the service that they're providing you with, whatever it may be, however they may be showing you compassion. They're using that as their way in. Because how would one tend to respond to these tokens of outpourings of love and compassion? The least you could do is entertain the idea of, participating in a Bible study that they're offering you. What type of ungrateful person would deny that? It would just seem like a slap in the face. So of course you're going to acknowledge that, that they're offering you this and say, okay, sure, why not? What's it going to hurt, right? Because you want to show them appreciation for all of their kindness and their outpouring of love. And so as you participate in these Bible studies, their outpourings of love and love bombing continues. So they continue to show you random acts of kindness. They may invite you over for dinner, for a barbecue, drop off some things at your house that you're needing. Just be involved, be present. Where, maybe a month ago you didn't know these people from a hole in the ground, and all of a sudden now they're just here, and they're just like saviors. They're here to help you and serve you, and they always have this love on the coming. They're emitting all of this love, and they seem so happy, and they have these smiles, and it's just like, wow, where are you people from? So you begin, really getting comfortable with them, and they feel like they're your friends, and they feel safe. And so you participate in their weekly Bible studies, or maybe even bi-weekly Bible studies. And in those studies, you start hearing about this world that is to come, that is void of pain, euphoria, and utopia, really. And in the Bible studies, you hear about this earth that is soon to come, that has no more suffering in it. And they're offering it to you, and they're saying, hey, you can be part of this and never feel any pain again for the rest of your life. And it really appears that by offering you this, they're answering your prayers that you've had your whole life. That everything that you have ever really wanted or felt would be fair for you, like this is what life should look like, they're offering it to you now, and you've wanted it forever. And so to you, of course, this just feels right. So little by little, their message of hope begins taking root in you deeply. And before you know it, you are desperate and hungry for the promises of this utopia that they speak of. And you're ready to make the commitment to become one of them. To finally, for the first time in your life, have a place where you feel like you truly belong, a family, a community, and not just that, but a community and family made up of the most loving, compassionate, gracious, understanding individuals you could ever dream of. It just seems too good to be true. But you decide, you know what, I'm going to take the plunge and make this commitment by getting baptized into their organization. And it's one of the happiest days of your life, because you're surrounded by all of these people who really seem to love and accept you, that you consider to be your brothers and sisters now. And finally, after your whole life of looking for something like this, you feel like you are home. You are finally home. And it's amazing. And it's been what you have been waiting for forever, and you just can't wait to get started. And you thank God prayerfully for bringing these people to you and helping you find them. But not too long after the baptism, you decide, I'm ready to get to work as a pioneer. I'm ready. I'm a bit apprehensive and scared, especially about the idea of talking to my friends and family, about all of this. But you decide, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go door to door, and I'm going to go talk to my family about this. But you realize that you're going to be dealing with some opposition. You've been instructed and you've been warned that people aren't always going to be so receptive. But you remind yourself of how selfish it would be for you to keep such good news away from people you care about. So you go for it. You begin sharing the good news of your newfound faith with all of those that are closest to you. You get set up as a pioneer with a buddy, and you start going door to door, sharing the good news with all of those that you possibly can. And you're saddened by some of their responses, but you are warned that Satan controls the minds of the apostates and the lost ones, and that it wouldn't be easy to break through that shell and his grasp on them. But you were also taught that with love and compassion and consistency, you would win them over in good time. Just the way that you were saved from that kingdom, they can be saved too. You just need to not give up on them and keep trying. And if it's God's will, they will come around just like you did. So after many months of hard work and dedication, after really trying your absolute best to get your mother to see just how happy you are in life now and how happy she could be too if she just, maybe agrees to one Bible study just to check it out. So after many months of trying to persuade her, she agrees. And she decides to partake in just one Bible study just to see what it's all about. And you are absolutely elated when you think about what this could mean. That maybe the relationship struggles you've been having with her are about to come to an end, and that maybe you will even spend everlasting life together on the new earth. You are literally brought to tears with excitement and relief at the same time. So she participates in her first Bible study, and she's actually quite interested in what's being taught, so she agrees to another and another. And before you know it, she's inviting you out to coffee almost every single day because of the sheer excitement of everything she's learning. And she goes over the Bible studies with you over and over again. And she has this life that is just being emitted from her that you haven't seen in so long. And you're so happy for her and happy how this organization has brought you guys together closer than ever before, closer than you ever even deemed possible. And at the end of every meeting, when you go for coffee and you do these little Bible studies just independently, you give praise to God and you pray and you thank Jehovah for bringing you guys closer together in your relationship. And for you, life could not be better. After several months, your mother decides that she would like to take the same plunge that you did and become baptized into the organization and pledge her life to its service, just the way you did. And day after day, your dreams of being close and having everlasting life with her appear to be coming true more and more because of this newfound faith in this godly family. You and your mother get involved jointly together now in the ministerial work as pioneers, and you have become inseparable. You spend your days together, your afternoons together, and your evenings together, all going about God's work together as a family, until suddenly, without warning, it all changed. Your mother was in a cafe one day, in earshot of a couple, and she overheard them speaking in a very somber conversation. And they were discussing the loss of their daughter. And it's not that she passed away. It's that this couple's daughter, late in her teens, had been in a car accident. And they had never really given a lot of consideration to how their lives as Jehovah's Witnesses could potentially face the decision one day of if they should or should not give a blood transfusion to either of themselves or their children. And this mother is sitting in earshot thinking about what she would do if you needed a blood transfusion and it was against her religion. What would she do? And as she listened to the heartbreak of these two parents, because they were Jehovah's Witnesses, and without having a lot of time to think, as their daughter was slipping away, they chose to give her the blood transfusion, knowing that it was forbidden in their religion to do so. And it did save her life, but they still lost her anyway. Because as the daughter recovered and continued in her studying with the organization of the Jehovah's Witnesses, she was told that her parents would soon be disfellowshipped and shunned for the choice that they made by giving her the blood transfusion. And as soon as she turned 18, she left the home and never communicated with them again. And she continued on being a witness. And so this is what this mother is sitting here listening to, this story about how the Jehovah's Witnesses essentially stole this family's daughter away. And it was very difficult for her to tune out overhearing that conversation, because here she had been sitting there thinking about how amazing it is just to have this closeness with her daughter again. And she was overtaken by the fear of what would happen should anything remotely similar take place in their lives. Is there anything that could happen that would make her daughter maybe never talk to her again? And so she had a lot of questions after hearing that conversation. She had a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, and she went and decided she was going to talk to you about it. And she came to you and said, "Hey, I overheard this thing, and I'm really scared that I'm going to lose you one day, that maybe there's something that this organization could say or do to make it that maybe you'll never want to talk to me again." And you did your best to reassure her that that wouldn't take place. But that wasn't necessarily enough to convince her that you would not be torn apart somehow someday. So she decided to go to an elder and discuss the situation. And the elders graciously offered to meet with her, to meet with your mom and have a Bible study and, set things straight. But the Bible study only led to more questions and more concerns. So your mother decided to call her old pastor and discuss the matter with him. And then she started doing her own independent studies and research and watching YouTube videos and reading articles about the issues and the struggles she was having with this entire thing. And you grew more alarmed by the day, because you had been taught by the Jehovah's Witnesses that this is exactly what Satan does to steal God's children away from him and his kingdom. So you warned her that the devil was trying to plant seeds of doubt in her, and that she really needs to just trust in Jehovah and leave things in his hands. But she refused, because she was terrified that she was going to lose you because of them one day. She said, I'm not going to risk losing you when we have grown so close. I need to know that there is no rules, no life-saving rules that either of us could ever break that could make you choose to never talk to me again. But you reply to her, hoping to comfort her and ease her, to comfort her and to relieve her of these fears. You say to her, Mom, I would never, ever do that. That I can assure you. Be at peace. Yet your words did not appease her, and she continued going forward before the elders repeatedly with her questions and her concerns. And that is when it happened. The switch. Very quickly it shifted from her calling them into meetings to ask them for clarification, to ask them to explain the matters. And now she was being called before the elders into meetings and another meeting. And in the last meeting, she was told that as a result of her rebellion, she is no longer considered to be one of them and is no longer welcome at the Kingdom Hall, and that she is being disfellowshipped for her conduct. You were also taken in to be spoken to before the announcement was given that Sunday at the congregation that your mother is no longer a part of their organization, and you were gently reminded that as an apostate, Satan has successfully stolen her away from God's kingdom, and that your mother now poses a great risk to you and your future with Jehovah. So for your protection and a sign of your loyalty to him and all he has done for you through the organization, from that day forward, you will go about your life as though she does not exist. You're instructed to block her contact from your phone, to remove her from social media, and to not respond to her or acknowledge her should you see her in any public place, and to not attend any family gatherings that she could possibly be present at. In an instant, your cloud 9 disappeared. You remember one of the last things you ever promised your mother. Mom, I would never, ever do that. That I can assure you, be at peace. Your heart sinks into your gut. There must be some type of misunderstanding. So after the service that day, you go to speak in private to an elder, just to clear things up. But it does not go as hoped. You are gently reminded in a loving way that to communicate with her at all ever again would be to choose Satan and his kingdom over Jehovah's, and your privilege of having life with him in the new earth would be revoked as a result. The organization that had promised a life of love and acceptance, compassion and care, has now completely obliterated your family, and in a blink of an eye, you have lost what has grown so dear to you. If you let them. Sadly, you guys, tens of thousands of individuals and families are faced with this scenario and this decision every single year to choose between their loved ones and their loyalty to the Watchtower. And they honestly believe they are not choosing between their loved ones and their loyalty to the Watchtower. They wholeheartedly believe they are choosing between Satan-governed shells of a human being and the creator of everything, the one that holds the keys to their future euphoria and utopia, and the one that has the ability to take away all their suffering. They believe that they are doing the only thing that actually makes sense. They're going by their convictions because they have been taught that to choose the Watchtower is to choose God and life. And to turn away from the Watchtower is to turn away from God and life. That there is no other option. Their do or die approach leads to thousands of relationships and families being torn apart annually, trapping thousands more under duress who may not want to be involved anymore for a variety of reasons, yet they stay. Because to leave would be to risk being shunned by their entire family, by their entire social network. Now, when do or die is the approach employed to maintain its numbers and control, you know this is not a true church. It is something much more sinister than that. You are dealing with an entity whose root grows in a very, very dark, devious place. And it is a place to be avoided at all costs, unless you are comfortable with paying the price of having that involvement. Threats, blackmail, fear tactics, control, shame, guilt, manipulation, and brainwashing are never the tools in the toolbox of an honorable, safe, loving, God-fearing, healthy church or organization. The JWs teach you will die a horrific death unless you, number one, become a Jehovah's Witness. Number two, you do the preaching work as instructed. And number three, you never stop being a pioneer for the Watchtower, which is being recruiting for them. They teach if you don't become a Jehovah's Witness or you ever stop, you will die in Armageddon. You will not be on the new earth. You will never see or talk to any Jehovah's Witness family you have again, and the Jehovah's Witnesses organization is the only option because they are the only way to everlasting life. I'm going to read you some things that I have taken now from their own literature to solidify the message and the story that I just shared with you guys. I did not come up with all of this on my own. There is plenty of evidence from their own literature that supports everything that I've just said, and I want to go through and read you guys a whole bunch of excerpts from their own material, and I will quote as I go. So from Watchtower 1983, February 15th, page 12. Similarly, Jehovah is using only one organization today to accomplish his will. To receive everlasting life in the earthly paradise, we must identify that organization and serve God as part of it. And from Watchtower 1993, October 1st, page 19, there are billions of people who do not know Jehovah. Many of them in ignorance practice things that God's word shows to be wicked. If they persist in this course, they will be among those who perish during the Great Tribulation. And from Watchtower 1990, April 15th, page 20. Yes, the destruction of the gross sinners in those cities was eternal, as will be the destruction of the wicked at the end of the present system of things. And from Kingdom Ministry 1968, in March, page 4, says the majority of people living today will probably be alive when Armageddon breaks out, and there are no resurrection hopes for those that are destroyed then. Watchtower 1989, September 1st, page 19. Only Jehovah's Witnesses, those of the anointed remnant and the great crowd, as a united organization under the protection of the Supreme Organizer, have any scriptural hope of surviving the impending end of this doomed system dominated by Satan the devil. And they reiterate their do or die teachings here in Watchtower 2001, February 15th, page 14. In fact, with God's day of judgment so near today, all of the world should keep silent before the sovereign Lord Jehovah and hear what he says through the little flock of Jesus' anointed followers and their companions, his other sheep. Annihilation awaits all who will not listen and who thereby set themselves against the rule by God's kingdom. And then Watchtower 2014, August 15th, page 21. In effect, Jesus also conveys Jehovah's voice to us as he directs the congregation through the faithful and discreet slave. And I mentioned this in a couple of my previous videos. The faithful and the discreet slave are the present governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is referring to the 8 men that reside together that oversee the entire organization. So they are the ones that are the present voice of God. We need to take this guidance and direction seriously, for our everlasting life depends on our obedience. So they focus a lot on obedience. Listen to us. We represent God. Do what we say, because if you don't, you're going to die in Armageddon. You're not going to have everlasting life. But if you obey, you will have everlasting life. And not only that, God will protect you during Armageddon, so you won't have to suffer. So taken from Watchtower 2006. This is May 15th, page 22. During the final period of the ancient world that perished in the flood, Noah was a faithful preacher of righteousness. In these last days of the present system of things, Jehovah's people are making known God's righteous standards and are declaring good news about the possibility of surviving into the new world. Just as Noah and his God-fearing family were preserved in the ark, survival of individuals today depends on their faith and their loyal association with the earthly part of Jehovah's universal organization. So in a nutshell, what they're saying is, if you ever leave us, good luck at Armageddon. From Watchtower 1958, October 15th, page 614. As for humans upon earth, on the side of Jehovah, will be all of those fully dedicated to him who are faithfully following Jesus Christ. Compared with earth's billions that are indeed few, on Satan's side will be all the rest of mankind, more than 99.9%. So our witnesses taught that they will lose their salvation if they stop being a Jehovah's Witness. Yes, they are. Let's look at Watchtower 2016, the June study, page 26. To leave Jehovah's organization, we would lose not only the privilege of doing God's will, but also the hope of life in God's new world. Witnesses are actually expected to rejoice at the destruction and suffering of fellow beings at Armageddon. And many of their articles and their magazines and their teachings talk about how witnesses are to celebrate and be excited about the imminent destruction of all of those that are not Jehovah's Witnesses. That you can read, I mean, I'm only going to read one or two here, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of examples of this, where we are literally taught to glorify the brutality of the upcoming Armageddon and the suffering that people are going to endure at it. So I'm just going to read one, like I said. This is taken from Watchtower 1977, June 1st, page 345. In the near future, this generation will see the foretold Great Tribulation that will bring an end to this present wicked system. At that time, none of Jehovah's faithful servants, the only ones surviving, will mourn over the destruction of the wicked. To the contrary, we will rejoice. Could you really rejoice watching your mother and father or son or daughter being tormented and burned up in Armageddon? It's just absolutely appalling, the lack of love and care and compassion that actually comes out in their teachings, in contrast to that early love bombing phase that is the way that they bring people into the organization. They bring them in through all these promises and demonstrations of kindness and compassion and grace, and but not too long after that, once involved, you really start seeing the darker side and the cruelty of ripping families apart and petrifying children that they're going to die in Armageddon, and that God is going to torment them if they don't obey and submit. It's just such a contrast. From Watchtower 1986, March 15th, page 19, some opposers are entertaining ideas that God is so merciful that he surely will not cause the death of so many millions of people during the Great Tribulation. They go on to teach that if you join now, before it's too late, it kind of, you know what it sounds like to me as I get into reading this next one? It sounds to me like one of those 2 a.m. infomercials, like, call now and you'll get this, this, and this, and, you know, don't miss your opportunity because, you know, come 2:05, it's going to be too late, so you better get on board now or else you're going to regret it. Anyway, from the Watchtower 1981, November 15th, page 16 and 17, says, any person who wants to survive into God's righteous new order urgently needs to come into a right relationship with Jehovah and his earthly organization now. As part of their indoctrination, children are also fed with very graphic, morbid depictions, like we're talking full color, very violent depictions of slaughters, and they're led to believe that God is literally going to slay all of these people, man, woman, child, infant, everybody, that he's going to slay them all. I'm going to show you guys an image from page 243 of the 2003 children's book, Learn from the Great Teacher. So the image I'm going to show you is in a book that is intended for young children. If that doesn't deter you, I don't know what would if you're a parent, but I'll just show you guys. It says, let's read together about when God gets rid of all the wicked and saves those that serve him. Jesus Christ, God's chosen king, will destroy this world at Armageddon. And if you look at this, I'm not sure how good you guys can see that there. But I mean, it's just people covered in blood running and screaming for their lives as you have these men on horses with swords and, bows and arrows just shooting at them, and they're just in agony, and there's all this water everywhere, and some of them are like drowning, and some of them are being shot at with weapons, and they're saying this is what Jesus is doing. Jesus Christ, God's chosen king, will destroy this world at Armageddon. Not just the world, they're showing that he's going to literally torture all of these people all at once, and that's in a children's book. So sweet dreams after that one. We'll continue on. Watchtower, 1967. This is June 1st, page 338. In Jehovah's organization, it is not necessary to spend a lot of time and energy in research, for there are brothers in the organization that are assigned to that very thing, to help you, who do not have so much time for this. These preparing the good material in the Watchtower and other publications of the Society. So in a paraphrase, they're saying, hey, don't you worry about understanding, any of these crazy things that we enforce upon you. We will do all the thinking for you. You just obey. Let's not, complicate matters, shall we? That's pretty much what they're saying in a nutshell there. Watchtower 2016, June study, page 26 and 27. An even greater mistake would be to allow the faults of others to stumble us and cause us to leave Jehovah's organization. Were that to happen, we would lose not only the privilege of doing God's will, but also the hope of life in the new world. So what they're talking about there is, let's just say, for example, from the story I shared earlier, this mother has decided to be a rebellious one and an apostate, so she can no longer be a witness. Well, what they're saying is, don't you dare choose to associate with her now. Just because she stumbled and lost her salvation doesn't mean you need to too. So don't you be tempted to go talking to her, because then you're going to have the same punishment. From Watchtower 2013, November 15th, page 20. At that time, the life-saving direction that we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey. Obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. So just obey. It's really that simple, folks. That's what they're saying. Just, it doesn't even matter if it doesn't make sense, if it's totally illogical. If it came from us, just do it. Don't even worry about thinking about it. Just obey. From Watchtower 2011, July 15th, page 18. If we stop actively supporting Jehovah's work, then we start following Satan. There is no middle ground. So what they're saying there is, if you do not stay an active pioneer as a Jehovah's Witness, you are serving Satan. That's it. So basically, once you become a witness, you must go recruit for them. And if you stop, you're no better than Satan. You're going to have the same consequence as Satan. Watchtower 1993, September 15th, page 22. But if we were drawn away from Jehovah's organization, there would be no place else to go for salvation and true joy. So once again, the buck stops there. Do or die. You either are part of us, and all of the promises for a lovely life and afterlife come with it, or you're not part of us. Good luck at Armageddon. Kingdom Ministry 1990, page 1. They must appreciate that identifying themselves with Jehovah's organization is essential for their salvation. So I know a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses try to teach that they don't teach that being a Jehovah's Witness is essential for salvation, but it's throughout all of their literature. They do teach it. Now, here it's talking about that they must appreciate that identifying themselves with Jehovah's organization is essential for their salvation. But how did it turn out for the Jehovah's Witnesses in Germany that identified as being part of the Watchtower organization? when it was under the leadership of Rutherford, and he was antagonizing Hitler. How did it turn out for them being associated as a Jehovah's Witness? It did not turn out very good for them. They ended up suffering hugely because of the fact that they were a witness. So it doesn't always turn out so good. I mean, they have a lot of promises for how it could turn out, but unfortunately, being part of the witnesses in some situations ends up costing the person their life. So from the yearbook 1982, page 259, at this stage of the affairs of man, it is absolutely impossible for anyone, professed Christian or otherwise, to stand independently of one organization that is bearing witness worldwide to Jehovah, his goodness and supremacy, in accordance with the 145th Psalm, and in effect, in accord with all the scriptures. It says you can't stand independently of the organization. Basically, if you are going to call yourself a Christian, you want everlasting life, you cannot be operating outside of their organization at all. It doesn't work. From Watchtower 1981, December 1st, page 27. No matter where we may live on earth, God's word continues to serve as a light to our path and a lamp to our roadway as to our conduct and beliefs. But Jehovah God has also provided his visible organization, his faithful and discreet slave, made up of spirit-anointed ones, to help Christians in all nations to understand and apply properly the Bible in their lives. Unless we are in touch with this channel of communication, which is the Jehovah's Witnesses, that channel of communication that God is using, we will not progress along the road of life no matter how much Bible reading we do. So you know what? It's not enough that you just study the Bible for yourself and apply the principles and follow the commandments and have a relationship with God. No. Ain't that easy. You have to be baptized as a Jehovah's Witness, and you have to be an active pioneer doing recruitment for them in order to have everlasting life. That's the only way. To be considered a Jehovah's Witness and part of the organization requires that you are a reporting pioneer. There's no way out of doing that. You have to be doing the recruitment. Now, children are considered, this is one of the very morbid teachings of the organization, that children are considered to share in the sins of the parents. So even infants will be tormented at Armageddon if the parents are not in good standing with the Watchtower, meaning that they're not actively doing the pioneer work. Even the babies will be tortured in Armageddon. We take this from Reasoning from the Scriptures, pages 47 and 48. What will happen to young children at Armageddon? The Bible does not directly answer the question, and we are not judges. Sure. However, the Bible does not show that God views the young children of true Christians as holy. It also reveals that in times past, when God destroyed the wicked, he likewise destroyed their little ones. Lovely. We'll continue on to Watchtower 1968, February 1st, pages 83 and 84. By all the evidences, the system of things is hastening to its final confrontation with the God of justice at Armageddon. Parents and children who fail to gain the mark on their foreheads that is an adequate appreciation of God's moral standard are sure to suffer. Parents will be held accountable for their children, and children will suffer for the failure of their parents. Now, previous quotes showed that preaching is required to be a Jehovah's Witness. Watchtower also stated even more directly that preaching is a requirement for salvation directly. They usually like to try to dance around that one, but if you're to look at Kingdom Ministry 2012 June, page 1, the U.S. edition, it says directly 12 reasons for preaching. One of them is it is a requirement for our salvation. And from Paradise Lost to Paradise Regained, 1958, page 249, says only the preachers of God's kingdom can expect to be protected during the end of this world and to live through Armageddon into the new world. So from, let's see here, Watchtower 2011, July 15th, page 24. We need to obey the faithful and discreet slave to have Jehovah's approval. And Watchtower 1989, September 1, page 15. But what must they do to survive the violent destruction of Satan's old world and enter the promised new world under the greater Joshua, Jesus Christ? They must keep in line with the organizational arrangements of the nucleus of Jehovah's visible organization, the Anointed Remnant. That's quite a sales pitch there. Okay, Watchtower 1965, April 1st, page 212. Yes, today, with Armageddon staring us in the face, we must keep in mind the sobering thought that millions, even billions, of lives may shortly come to a swift and decisive end, putting their one-time owners behind the reach of any expression of love on our part. So, sucks to be you. I warned you. Okay, and one more here. And we're going through Watchtower 1951, July 15th, page 446. What this means to us today is that those now living in this time of judgment who fail for one reason or another to take a stand for Jehovah and are therefore slain by him, just a little slain, that are slain by him at the Battle of Armageddon, will not be retained in his memory for a resurrection, that this group will include the majority of humans now living on this earth, as shown by Jeremiah 25:33, that says, "The slain of the Lord shall be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, neither gathered, nor buried. They shall be dung." Now, these scriptures are definitely not the ones being presented in the love bombing and recruitment phase of this process. They come later. So here's the question. What is the one clear giveaway that you're dealing with a mind-controlling cult? Like a dangerous person or a dangerous group of people? I'm going to give you a clue. Here's your Blue's clue of the day. Extremist groups insist that belonging to their particular sect is a requirement for salvation and for escaping doom and suffering. It's always the same story. All of the cults use the exact same approach. It's just a cookie cutter, basically, design, and you can identify it from a million miles away. Very, very simple. If they're luring you in and then making you afraid to leave, red flags. Get out of there. So do not fall for do or die teachings in any sect. Not this one, not another one. So that concludes my message on the truth about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower. This is video number 5 out of 10. Hopefully you guys will tune in to video number 6. We're going to take a look at the entire history of the medical teachings of the Watchtower from very, very, very early on. The incongruencies in those teachings over the years as they've changed and went back and forth on all different kinds of things, from organ transplants to blood, taking and receiving blood, all of those kind of things. We're going to talk about those in the next video. Hopefully you guys will stay tuned for that. This is Carol Bird here.